This video is going to focus on some very basic things about how to be persuasive and what is it to be persuasive. If you think about it, we're always persuading. We're always trying to get people to do what we want. If you think about it, when you ask your parents for anything, you're trying to persuade them to give it to you. So if you go to your parents and you ask them for a little more money for something that you want, you're persuading your parents to give you that money. You're giving them reasons why they should give you something. Something like a job interview is all about persuasion. You're persuading the people across from you to choose you and not other people who are applying for that job. So we are always persuading. We're persuading our friends to go eat lunch where we want to go, or go see the movie we want to see, or go to the places we want to go. We're always using the power of persuasion. But what is a persuasive presentation? A persuasive presentation is your opinions supported by facts or by expert opinions. Your book talks about three types of persuasive presentations. The first one is to question a policy. The second one is to question the value of something. And the third is to question a fact. Questions of policy focus on a change of a law or a procedure. So for example, is it fair that smokers have to pay such a high tax on cigarettes? If people want to change the amount of tax on the cigarettes, that is a question of policy. Questions of value ask the question, is it right or wrong? Is it moral or immoral? So for example, should we eat meat or should we not eat meat? This questions the value of something, the value of the life of an animal compared to the value of the enjoyment or nutrition that we get from the animal. And the last one is questions of fact. This is fact versus misinformation or misconception. So for example, we can ask, did man really land on the moon? Now, usually in debates, we focus more on questions of value and of policy. However, in today's society, with more and more misinformation out there, we have to start questioning the facts also. When we're trying to persuade people, we always have to think about our audience. That's the most important thing when we're trying to persuade someone. So when we talk about the example about mom and dad and getting money, well, I'll tell you from my life, it was much easier for me to get money from my mom than my dad. However, it was much easier for me to go out and play and meet my friends talking to my dad than talking to my mom. So I thought about my audience and I thought about, who should I ask for what I want? In the 1950s and 60s, whites and African Americans were very segregated in some parts of America, which means that they had separate schools, separate restaurants, separate buses, and such. Now, when people saw a picture like this during that time, it made many people very angry because many people felt very strongly for or against interracial marriages. Now, if you think about it, most people are pretty okay with interracial marriage. We don't really think of it as a big problem or a big deal anymore. But today we have some issues like gay marriage. Gay marriage, some people feel very strongly for or against gay marriage. Now, I don't really care. It's 100% your prerogative to feel however you want to feel. But you have to realize that in a situation where people feel very strongly about something, it's going to be much harder to persuade them. So who do we try to persuade? Well, we try to persuade those people who are kind of in the middle one way or the other. People who are 100% against gay marriage or 100% for gay marriage, they're probably not going to be influenced either way. But there's usually a certain amount of people that are kind of in the middle of something, and they're just not really sure. They maybe feel a little bit for or a little bit of against something. Those are the people that can be influenced. Now, if I was to give a presentation to try to influence you that Takashima is actually a Japanese island and not a Korean island, well, that probably won't go over very well because everyone in the class is going to believe that Dokdo is a Korean island. So there's no way for me to persuade you you're thinking one way or the other. You already have a strong belief about something. Just remember, by definition, a persuasive presentation are going to have people who disagree with you. Not everyone's going to agree with you, right? Because you're persuading someone to feel a certain way. So whatever you do, just remember to be polite. Understand that there are reasons why people feel the way they feel. People feel strongly about many issues in the world, for or against something. For example, Takashima or Dokdo Island. So when we get emotional, sometimes we forget some very basic things, like to be polite to each other. So being persuasive does not mean you stop listening to the other person, or that you say you're better than the other person. And it definitely does not mean that you make other people feel stupid. Remember, they're not stupid for how they feel, but just because of their education, their background, they have a different feeling than you, a different point of view or perspective. When we watch the news or we look outside, we oftentimes see people yelling at each other saying, "Believe me, no, believe me." Well, honestly, they're not very persuasive. If you really want to be persuasive, you should listen to the other side and consider their feelings. And not just consider their feelings, but know that their feelings are valid. Those people are not stupid people. If you treat someone with respect and understanding, it's much easier to persuade them. So really try to understand why someone has those beliefs. If you can really understand why they have those beliefs, then maybe you can start to persuade them.